I know as a TBI survivor, we have a couple choices of trying to find support. Or maybe you didn't even realize that there are choices out there to find support. And that's one of the biggest keys along our healing journey is finding a support group, a community that we can relate to, that we can talk to. So today I want to talk to you about two resources that are the main focus of finding that community. One is brain injury retreats, where you actually go away somewhere. And two would be a local support group, like the Brain Injury Association has them all over the country, at least here in the United States in different cities. So let's dive into why you would choose which one, or would you do both, and what does that entail? Because I get that question a lot of what is it like? So let's first touch base on the brain injury retreats. There isn't a lot of them, although there are some, and they're growing more and more and more. There are some that are more local to wherever you're living, and there's some that take place in various parts of the country that you could get accepted to and fly into. In this video, we're going to discuss what are 3 pros to each, the group or the retreat, and what are the 3 cons to each. And what is that experience like? So you'll want to stick till the end of this video to kind of get the whole picture so you can make a better decision on which one would work for you. Okay, so let's dive into the retreats. Now I've been to retreats. I've been multiple retreats in different parts of the country, and I've been a facilitator at retreats. Retreats are a program where you get accepted in. You apply, you find out where this retreat is, and you typically go somewhere for 5 or 7 days and kind of have an intensive experience. You're with that group for those 7 days. So they can be very profound and very valuable. They were a key in my healing, but they can also be very exhausting, and you have to know if you're ready for that type of traveling and that type of work. So what are the pros to a retreat? The first and foremost pro to a retreat is you instantly get to meet people who totally get you. That was a feeling I felt as soon as I walked into my retreat and realizing I don't need to explain anything. These people just get me. They see me. And it was like this weight was just lifted off my shoulders because I hadn't experienced that yet. So it was a great, almost unexpected feeling experiencing that. The second pro to a retreat is you get to learn new things. Because you're kind of secluded in this one place for 5 or 7 days, there's different workshops, modalities, different ways of eating. You learn all sorts of things, so you really don't have anything else to focus on except why you're there, which is your brain injury, right? And finding ways to thrive and move forward and connect with other brain injury survivors. So that's a huge, valuable asset to retreats because you literally just get to focus on you and these new experiences to see what works for you and what doesn't. The third pro to a brain injury retreat, at least I think it's a pro, is it's a pretty intense experience. There really isn't any time to kind of, toe tip and see, is this something I want to do? Like, you're kind of thrown into this experience. So it can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you're not used to something like that. But it definitely is something that pushes you beyond your comfort zone. And I think when you have your brain injury, that can be needed because we tend to kind of become recluses and fold into ourselves and are very unsure of what we can or can't do. So a brain injury retreat can be a good little gentle push. I don't want to scare any of you away to experiencing new things that can really help you. So it's a huge pro and something I would say just embrace and understand you're there for your healing and you're there for you and you're investing in you. Okay, let's touch base on the 3 cons that I've seen and experienced, and I know other survivors have experienced after leaving a brain injury retreat. And these can be a little tough. And in no way, shape, or form do I think these cons should deter you from either looking into a brain injury retreat or even attending one, because I do believe that they are essential in helping you to move forward. So the first con that I would say is you learn all these new techniques, right? You things you may have never heard of before, maybe yoga, maybe mindfulness, maybe art therapy, maybe music therapy. I mean, the list goes on and on. Nature therapy, all sorts of things. And you kind of test them out. It's like a beginner's mode. It's like, okay, this is cool. I like this. And then when you leave, it's like, well, now what do I do with this? That can be a downside. There are some things that I found really worked for me, but then when I got home, realized I couldn't continue them because there was no practitioners or no place around my house and where I live to be able to continue them. Some you can try to do on your own, but as a brain injury survivor, that can be difficult for us because we're already dealing with so much. So I'd say that's a bit of a con. Again, not detrimental, but something to just think about and consider. The second, and I think the biggest con that most survivors feel, is they hit a depression wall after leaving a brain injury retreat. And the reason being is you've been so isolated and gone on things for so long with yourself, right? And you finally meet this group of people that you connect with and you feel this camaraderie with, and it's just this intense feeling of family. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Words cannot even explain it. And you're with them for 5 or 7 days, every day, all day, and then you leave. And you go home, and you still are on that high of everything you experienced, but then that high starts to come down because you start to miss those people. You start to miss that container. You start to miss that experience. And it can be really tough. And it's something I've talked to a lot of survivors about after they've left a retreat. And it's something that needs to be considered because I believe you should have your tools, your toolbox to understand you're going to experience it. It will pass. But you're going to need to do a lot of self-care and maybe, go see your therapist that week or have friends at home or family that you can talk to about it and really find your support around it as you navigate it, because it can hit hard. It's like a really big high and then a really big low. So that's just something to consider. But again, it shouldn't deter you from going. And the third and final con, I would say, kind of backs up what we just talked about, which is you lose connection with all those people that you just met. There are usually groups that are formed on Facebook or they give you emails, but as we all know as survivors, staying in contact with each other is not our best forte. I'm just being honest. We're dealing with so much other things as trying to remember stuff and our energy levels and our healing, that trying to stay in contact with all these people and make an effort to email them or call them or text them, which can be overstimulating alone for us, kind of falls to the wayside. And even though it's important and something we've got to invest time into, we're not very good at it, and so we tend to lose those connections. Just another consideration. And a bonus, I would say, to retreats, as far as not really a con or a pro, but something to really consider, is the traveling. You're going to have to travel wherever this retreat is. So whether it be by car, whether it be by plane, you're going to have to pack. You're going to have to deal with the stimulation of people around you, the noises, and just traveling in general can be exhausting. And usually at these retreats, the sleeping situations are not that great. And I know we need sleep, which is ironic, but they're mainly held at camp facilities. So you're dealing with like wooden bunk beds or yurts, and they try to make them as comfortable as you can. I mean, it's basically like going to summer camp. There are mattresses, for me, we doubled up the mattresses. They provide the sheets, the pillows, the blankets. I mean, I slept well as I got used to them, but the first year I did not sleep so good. Those are two other things you really want to consider, is if you're ready wherever you are in your healing journey to take on something like that and understand that you might be tired, and that's fine because they incorporate rest periods into the retreats. Or if you just feel like you need to rest, they encourage you to take that time. So understand your self-care is first and foremost at these places. So please take that into consideration and really evaluate if you're ready for something like this. Okay, let's move on to local support groups. Now, those can be a game changer as well, and maybe a little bit more feasible for you versus going to an actual retreat. Just depends where you are on your healing journey. So I leave that up to you to make that decision. But let's go over the 3 pros to attending a local brain injury support group. First and foremost is you're going to be making friends locally, right? Everybody that's coming to those groups lives in the vicinity, so it'll be a lot easier for you to keep in contact with these people and even see them outside of the support group, which could be essential when you're looking for community and friends who understand what you're going through. The second pro and the most obvious would be continuing education. Here you can continue your education because they're always offering new group themes locally. There might be events like barbecues or games. They'll do fun stuff. They'll also do educational stuff. So you really have a wide variety to choose from, and you can pick and choose when you want to go. There's no intense session of you're going to be here for 5 days. So that's also a pro because you can ease into the support group if you really can't attend that often in the beginning. And that leads me right into my third and final pro of a local support group, which is exactly that. You can come and go as you please. So if you are not ready to be in the group every week or every month, however often they run that support group, you can choose to stay home and know that it will be there for you when you're ready. So that's good as far as pacing your healing and finding community and understanding you can trickle that back into your life as you need it. All right, let's dive into the 3 cons. And by no means is this list right exactly for everybody. These are just my experiences and experiences I have seen from other survivors I have talked to. So please don't hold it to like, well, you said it would be this way. It may be very different for you. I'm just giving you a broad idea of what it's like to do either or of these things. All right, so the first con is they tend to be more education based versus connection. I didn't find a deep connection in the local support groups as I did in the retreats. Now, that could just be because we're only casually seeing each other and, it's not such an intense experience. I don't know. And I'm not saying I didn't make any connections. I'm just saying that I found the connections with the other survivors at the retreats more authentic, more intense, more life-changing, and my friends who are survivors tend to come from my retreats versus the local support group. And that could also be that the local support group, right, those people have their already friends and family, relatives, and so they're not necessarily looking to have a bunch of TBI survivor friends. I don't know. That has just been the consensus I have gotten from my own experience and from others. The second con to a local support group is maybe the time that the group is offered or where the group takes place is not convenient for you. I have run into that problem with many survivors, especially if they live out away from the cities who don't have local support groups that they could easily drive to. If they were to go to a support group, it would take them an hour or 2 hours to even get there. And then maybe the time that it's offered also isn't convenient. It may be too late or too early, or they may have something else scheduled, or therapies may interfere. So that can play a big part in it, and I know is a big obstacle for other survivors to overcome. There's not enough support groups out there where everybody is located. So I understand that's a huge, huge con. And the third and final con to a local support group is the group is always changing. So people may come and go, or some person might show up and then never come back. And although we saw that in the retreats, it isn't as common, right? Because everybody's looking forward to that retreat. So many people make sure they're going back, if that's an option. Some retreats you only attend one time. It depends on the structure of the retreat and if you're invited back. Whereas local support groups, you can come and go as you please, as we talked about, but that can also bring in a bunch of different people at different times. And so that can be too much for TBI survivors because they never see the same faces, or they're always having to meet new people and explain things, meaning their background, and it's a lot. And so I've found that that has also been a con to local support groups because it's just too much change all the time. Now, that being said, whether you choose the retreat, a local support group, or a combination of two. What's important first and foremost is your intention of joining these groups. Why do you want to be a part of them? What are you looking to get out of it? Right? And how often do you want to invest your time? And are you physically and mentally capable to try something new? These are big questions that I want you to consider and just look into and then make your choice. And the thing is, you can always try it and then realize, okay, this didn't work for me. Even at the retreat, I know some people who went to the retreats and left because it was just too much for them. And that's okay. So don't be hard on yourself about that. So if you found that this was helpful, please give this video a like. Please subscribe to the channel because I got a lot more information coming. And if you want to find out more about exact modalities that are practiced in the retreats, I suggest you check out this video on mindfulness versus meditation, because those are two practices that both groups tend to practice a lot, and it will give you insight in at least one of the exercises that they do. Thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you on the next one.